You know, Angel Marie, that one of the biggest challenges we face as family caregivers is the onslaught of medical bills. The the correct ones, the incorrect ones, the ones we should pay, the ones we shouldn't pay, the ones we can figure out how to pay. And we've started this business I call being the CEO of Caring for Your Loved One Inc. So I'm so thrilled looking at the Dove system that your program has won an award, because I think this is something that every caregiver needs to have in their hands, maybe even before they become a caregiver.
Right.
Tell me about Dove, how it started, why it started, and tell me your story.
Well, I would love that. Thanks, Gary. So I have been in healthcare. I know I'm dating myself, but over 50 years. I started out as a candy striper when I was 13 years old. And I've just caring for people has just always been at my core. And I also watched in my neighborhood where I grew up in Philadelphia, how our neighbors cared for one another, and we always shared each other's resources. So that's why my company is called Overbrook, because that was the neighborhood that I grew up in Philadelphia. And they just taught me by examples that anything you know, your neighbor should know. So when I started thinking about how can I support people and patients going forward, because that's always been the core at who I want to take care of, I decided to take all of my years worth of training and knowledge. And I was a nurse for many years. Then I was a family nurse practitioner. And then I pivoted and I became a fraud analyst.
Wow.
And yes, so I purchased a company who was doing medical bill reviews and fraud investigation for all the insurance carriers. And then one day I looked at our data, and at that point it had been 26 years worth of data. And I saw that not only did we save our clients over $35 million, but we were able to do that because all the bills we reviewed, 93% of them were wrong. They had errors in them. So I got really, really mad. And that was the Overbrook or the Philly in me. And I'm like, no. I don't want to work with carriers anymore. I need to teach people how to do what I do. So how to think like a provider so that they could show up with more autonomy and authority anytime they enter a healthcare system, whether for themselves or a caregiver, and then how to read their medical bills like a fraud analyst. And to be honest, Gary, it's not that hard, but the healthcare system makes it so elusive, so scary. They speak in code. I could teach you the code. It's not easy. I mean, it's not hard. It's very easy, but nobody ever taught us how to do that. So that's how I made then the Dove system. I took the system that we were using for over 26 years for our clients, and I simplified it. And what was important to me was to have that security, that financial peace of mind, that control and order when you're caring for a loved one. My dad has Alzheimer's, and I see what my mom deals with. And there had to be a system to help even people who have children with special needs. You're still, no matter who you are caring for on the spectrum, I always say it's harder on the person who's doing the caregiving. So what kind of tool could I give them and patients to have financial peace of mind and ownership with their medical journey? So that's why I made the Dove system for financial peace of mind. And you're right, it stands for document, organize, verify, and engage. And it's everything you need to think like a provider and read your bills like a fraud investigator.
I love that. And I think that every caregiver needs it. Let's walk through the system. I know there's 12 elements to the system and 2 sections. I'm lucky enough to get the Dove system. It comes to my house. I open it up. Walk me through it.
Okay, so can I also show you like a visual?
Sure.
So this is the binder that you would receive. This is the Dove system, and it's 2 parts. So this stays home. This is what helps you read your bills like a fraud analyst. It keeps track of if you have health insurance, no matter what type, even if it's Medicare, Medicaid, Blue Cross Blue Shield, it helps you keep track, pardon me, of your explanation of benefits, what your benefits actually are, because that is our responsibility to know what our policies do and do not cover so that we can challenge it should they not decide to cover something. It keeps track of all of your providers, and it keeps track of ancillary services, which is radiology, x-ray, because that's the other thing, Gary, we all have to get our heads around, like if a loved one goes into a facility or into the hospital, we get so many bills and we don't know why. We need to realize that a hospital is just a brick and mortar. It's just a building. So you're going to get one bill from the hospital, and then anybody else that you interacted with while you were there, laboratory, pharmacy, x-ray, anything like, you're going to get a bill from them. The toolkit helps you keep track of all of those, helps you keep track of which medications you're on, why you're on it, and who prescribed it for you. And side note, everything in there is positioned from a position of, I don't want to say fraud, blatant fraud, but fraud or human error. So under the
potential fraud or human error.
Yeah. Right. I always say, give the benefit of the doubt. We're all human, but I could give you all a quick tip now. Under the pharmacy page, there's a little checkbox because we need to be making sure and reading our explanation of benefits or our review, our receipts, whether or not a medication is on auto refill, because that's a huge area for fraud. And what I mean is that if you don't have a medication that is on auto refill, but you get a bill, some pharmacies have been known to put a medication on auto refill. You're not getting the med, but they are billing your insurance every single month for it. And they're pocketing those pills so they have larger quantities in their storehouse. So you always have to so everything in the toolkit helps you to think from that frame of mind. There's a glossary section, which is very, very basic explanation of some of the terms we need to know. And then the piece de resistance in the toolkit is that if you ever have to reach out to a medical billing department or a provider, sometimes we don't know what we should say. Well, the first lesson, because your time is more valuable, you're taking care of your loved one, you have to put it in writing, very succinct, short, to the point, and send it, return, receipt, requested, because now you have a record, and by law, they have to answer within 30 days. So I've already written all the letters for you, templates that you could possibly need to challenge a too high of a price, to challenge being billed for something that you didn't get, or double billed, anything like that. So the templates are all in there. So like I said, that part stays at home. This part, this little guy, is what teaches you how to think like a provider. This is what you would take with you to every one of your medical appointments. So it fits neatly in a purse or a backpack or anything like that. And in it, I teach people how to document the way a provider, a medical professional does. And it's called SOAP notes, which is a cute little name. And all it means is subjective, objective, assessment, and plan. So subjective is anything you tell your doctor. So before you go for your appointment, let's show up more powerfully. So before you go to your appointment, write down, why did you make the appointment? If it's for sore throat, what have you tried? What worked? What didn't work? This way, when you're at the office, you're more, efficient with your time and their time. And they're going to be blown away that you come that prepared. The A part is the assessment part, what they found. So if they take your temperature and see that, oh, you have a temp of 101, you're going to put that in there. And anything they do while you're at that visit, you're going to want to put that in there. If they do an EKG, if they do blood work, you're going to want to put that in there. Again, from an error or fraudulent billing practice, because if you get a bill 6 months later and they bill you for an EKG and you look back in your journal and you're like, they didn't do an EKG, that's billing for a service you didn't receive. So, and then assessment and plan are the other things. So like if you're, sometimes we're so overwhelmed, especially if you're caring for an older parent and you've got young kids at home, you get home from the appointment and you're like, what was I supposed to do? What was dad supposed to do? I don't remember. Well, that's the plan part. And you open up your journal. Oh, that's right. I was supposed to give him 2 Tylenol every 4 hours, blah, blah, blah. So the two go hand in hand. And again, it's all with a matter of protecting yourself for when the bills come in to make sure that you are accurately billed for whatever you did or did not receive.
Well, it's also helping you become CEO of caring for your loved one, be a professional member of your loved one's care team, as opposed to let all these things just happen to you. Now you have all the data, and now you have all the forms, and now you have all the follow-up you need. So as you said, it's impressive to them, because they never see this for the most part, that you know what happened, what day, what's due and what's not due. This is really helpful to caregivers, I think.
I think so too. And when you said that instead of things happening to them, that's the most important thing, Gary. We need to take more of a active, participating, driving force role instead of passive. And in Latin, the word patient means passive. I don't want us to be passive. And even when I was a nurse practitioner seeing patients, when I walked in the room, it doesn't matter what my credentials are. They are the most important person in the room. Nobody knows your body. Nobody knows your caregiver, your whoever you're caring for. Nobody knows your loved one as much as you do. Nobody is a bigger advocate for yourself or your loved one than you.
That's a song we've been singing for decades, and I'm thrilled that you were able to put together the data, the resources, the plan, the tool, the Dove, that people can now have with them when they manage their loved one's system, their loved one's healthcare. So this is great. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for saying that.
Do you have any, you've got a few more seconds. Do you have any more tips you want to share with us?
I could share with you the four most common, probably the three most common things that we see in regards to billing errors. This way, in case somebody's sitting in their house right now with a bill from a loved one. The three most common things we see are upcoding. And an example of upcoding would be if you wrote down or that you made an appointment for the provider, the medical physician, but when you were there, you saw his PA, the physician's assistant. But then when you got your bill, you were billed as seeing the provider. That's considered upcoding. So you want to watch for that. Also, if you saw your provider for like a sore throat, but then when you got your bill, you saw that you were billed for like a pneumonia visit, that's upcoding. And upcoding allows them to bill for something more severe and therefore more expensive. Other thing is double billing. We see that all the time, and it doesn't have to be just two. A friend of mine had a same-day procedure done, and when we were looking at his bills, he had one IV, but he was billed for 6 IVs. And then the other most common thing we see is billing for services we didn't receive. And this happened with my mom. Like I said, my dad has Alzheimer's, and they lived in Philadelphia, but they have a house in Fort Myers down by you. Yeah. And she got a bill for $500. And of course, I was like, read the bill. And one of the things you always want to look at is the date of service. And when she looked at it, she realized they weren't in Philadelphia on that billing date. They were actually in Fort Myers at the time. So she called the Medicare office and said, this is an error. And they were blown away. They're like, you found fraud. Like, how did you know that? And it's very simple. That's what I'm saying, guys. It's very simple to look for those 3 basic things. Oh, and real quick, Gary, let me tell you an example of upcoding. My daughter had her wisdom teeth out, and her bill was $2,400. And when she looked at the bill to question it, she saw that she was billed as having an anesthesiologist give her anesthesia, but she knows the oral surgeon did, because that's who signed her consent form. So when she called, and I said, always assume human error, never say fraud. They said, well, we'll look into it and get back to you. And they did. Her bill was reduced from $2,400 down to $400.
That's brilliant. The other thing I'm thinking with the Dove system, it also trains us to think like professionals. Instead of saying, well, there's a system I have. No, now I am a professional. I am an equal member of the care team. I kind of know, because of what Angel's telling me and because of the Dove system, that I need to think about these things in a different way than I had been thinking about them.
Right. You are the most important person in the room, because without you, the system doesn't even exist. We are. So I never have an attitude of arrogance or, cockiness about that, because people want to help people who are nice to them. So always go in being nice, but just realize your relevance and your importance. And I love that you said about the CEO, because one of the things I talk about is that you are the CEO and the CFO of your body. Yeah. So it's our responsibility to protect our health and our wealth, and more so the people who are entrusted to us.
Well, thank you for this. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the Dove system, and congratulations on being a 2023 Today's Caregiver Friendly Award recipient.
Thank you, Gary. Highlight of my year. Thank you so much.
Take care.